regression, some guys. Okay, so yesterday we started with the recap of what exactly linear regression is all about. We started with the regression problem. To solve a regression problem, there are couple of machine learning algorithms are available. Okay, it's not that you have to use linear regression. You have a lot of other machine learning, supervised machine learning algorithms are available to solve the regression problem. Okay, so hope I am audible, right? So I am audible and my screen is also visible. Good. I should have done right. Fine. We also discussed about the feature selection, right? Feature selection, and I just touched the stepwise regression. As part of stepwise regression, we have something called backward stepwise regression and forward stepwise regression. So in the case of backward stepwise regression, we blindly include all the features in our data set in the model, and then the algorithm, what it does is it will draw one after another the features, and based on the significance, okay, significance level, lesser significance. So those features are not significant. From the rear side, it will keep drop the variables. Okay, backward stepwise regression, that is how it works. And also in the case of forward stepwise regression, it starts with 0 features, and then it keep add features one after another. And then the stepwise regression ultimately gives us the recommended features in the recommended features. In either case, the stepwise regression built-in function gives us the recommended features, right? The recommended feature that needs to be included in the model. Feature selection is one of the important tasks that has to be done as part of the model implementation. Fine. So and also we continued with the model evaluation steps, right? So how do we evaluate the model? So okay, we did the the feature selection, and then what we did, we fitted the model. What do you mean by fitted the model? We use the R programming language. There I showed you how to implement fitting and implementing. All these terms are same, right? We implemented the model. Can someone tell me which function that we used it in R to implement linear regression model? How many of you remember how to implement the linear regression model? Which function that I used it? LM function, right? LM function. LM stands for linear model. Okay, linear regression model, LM function. So just remember the basic things, okay? And how did I apply this model on the unseen data? Which function that I used it to apply this model? Which function that I used it? I guess you did not see the code, right? One second, I'll just see here. This is what we discussed yesterday, right? We implemented. You tell me now which function that we used to implement the linear regression model, or which one we LM, right? LM stands for linear regression model. So this is a dependent variable. Just prior to this, just before this, you need to specify the dependent variable. This is the syntax, okay? After the tilde, you need to specify whichever features that you need to include. You need to specify it here. The net LM function is to create a model or implement a model or to fit a linear regression model, LM function. And which function that we use to apply this trained model on the unseen data? Which function that is? Excellent, right? Predict. Good. Predict. Very simple. So you have to remember these two functions. Very simple, right? Predict function. You need to use predict. So you need to specify the model name, and then the unseen data, right? Which data? Training test data set. In our case, test data set. This is the fundamental thing you need to remember it. This is applicable for all the supervised machine learning algorithm. But the name is different. But predict is common for all the supervised machine learning algorithm. But For example, in the case of linear regression, we are using LM. In the case of other algorithms, the function name will differ. Is it clear? Are you all okay with this? This is a very basic, fundamental thing.
Yes.
Are you all clear? Karthik?
LM means it's what it defines. Predict we can understand. LM means linear model or something.
Linear model, linear regression model. So that's what I said. See, we have something called neural network model, okay, algorithm, and we have something else called support vector machine. We have something else called KNN, Naive-Bayes. Like this, different algorithms are available. For different algorithms, they have different functions. For linear regression model, LM function. Okay. So these two, Karthik, are you okay with this? Karthik, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Which function do you use it to fit the model? LN. LN function. Which function that we use to apply the trained model on the unseen data? Predict function. Please repeat it one more time in your mind, okay? Don't forget it. This is the very important step, right? So we use the training data here to train the model, right? To train the model, and once the model get trained, right, we apply this model on the unseen data, test data set. Very simple. That's all. And the next step is, okay, my model is ready. I train my model and apply the model on the unseen data. Now now I need to check how well my model is doing. Right? It's something like we prepare some special food, right? Chicken biryani. Everyone can prepare chicken biryani by looking at the YouTube videos. But let's say 10 people they prepare the chicken biryani. Now we wanted to taste it and we want to conclude of the 10 people's preparation which one is the best one. Right? Similarly, we fitted the model and then we applied the model on the test data set. Now we wanted to understand how well this model predicted. For that, which metrics that I showed you yesterday that we are supposed to use it? Which metrics that we used it? Karthik and others. Adjusted R-square for multiple linear regression. In addition to that, root mean square error, mean square error, and sum or square error. Right? Mean absolute error is, see, in the case of sum or square error, we squared the error, but you know what is absolute. School time we studied, right? When you take an absolute on -2, this one will become positive value. Right? This is for the pipe thing, right? This is nothing but absolute. When you take an absolute of this one, you will get positive value. Even if there is a negative value, it will become positive. That is what mean absolute error. Right? So that is what mean absolute error. So okay, sum or square error, mean absolute error, mean square error. Instead of squaring the value, we are taking absolute and mean square error. There are some functions available, ME or some, I don't remember it. Using which you can also manually you can cut into -1. If you do it right, it will become positive value. You cannot do -1. You have to use absolute only because positive value will become negative. Yeah, there is some function is available using which you can do. And then we have some root mean square error. So most of them they use root mean square error. There is something called RMSLE function. This also there are some people they are using it, but end of the day this is more than sufficient. RMSE, root mean square error. Right. So how do we use root mean square error? Let's say I have developed a model here. This is step 1, right? In step 1, in step 2, what we did? We use this metric RMSE, right? So for example, in the case we have created a model called housing.fit, and for this we found the RMSE, root mean square error, right? Root mean square error. And then what we did, we created another model, housing.fit1. So here we did some feature selection, right? We excluded the insignificant features and then we fitted this model and we computed the RMSE for this also. It's something like that, Karthik, it's something like, for the sake of Karthik, right? You are eating all the food, and then you are checking your weight. Obviously it will be obese, right? So now what you are doing is you are trimming your or you are changing your eating habit and then, right, so here what will be trimmed all the unnecessary thing, and then you are checking your body weight again. Obviously there will be improvement, right? Eating fat and trans fatty food will cause harm to your heart and lung and many places, right? So what you are doing is, right, you want to eat optimal food, you want to change your eating habit. Now the same thing is applicable. See what we did, we included all the features in the as a first step here, right? Here we include all the features, we check the RMSE. The RMSE was slightly more compared to this RMSE. Hence we concluded this model is good, right? This model is good. So that is what we concluded. One second. My USB device. So in between, right, we did the feature selection using stepwise regression function, stepwise function, right? Stepwise function we used it, and with the help of that one, we are able to find out the size plus UDS. Only these two. Sorry, this is size. My handwriting. Size plus UDS, right? These two features are helpful in terms of predicting the target variable housing price. So now you tell me, what is the advantage of feature selection? See, if I include, so in this case I included 4 features, right, Karthik? 4 features. See, you need to tell all the features, so size plus UDS plus price plus MISC, right? Because the number of features are very less. These 4 features, we included blindly, all these 4 features, but did we really find any benefit of including all the 4 features? No, right? So see, in this case 4 features fine. If you have 100 features in your data set, if you blindly include them in your model, what will happen? The training time will take longer time. The model has to learn from all the features. It takes a lot of time. But if you do the feature selection, it reduces the complexity of the model and the training time will be lesser, and also it is easier to interpret. More the features, very difficult to, higher the difficult to interpret, right? Lesser the features, it is easier to interpret. And also it improves the accuracy of model if the right subset of the features are chosen, right? And also importantly, it reduces the overfitting. Something. It became very sensitive. 1 second here. Hope I'm audible to you all, right? So fine. Am I audible to you all? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yes, Satya.
Yeah, fine.
It's clear.
Yeah, that's also, it should be clear. So fine. So these are the benefits of doing feature selection, right? The training time will be less, and the interpreting the model with the less number of features or with the optimal number of features, it will be faster, and also the accuracy of the model will also be much better. That's what we learned with the help of RMSE. Though adjusted R-squared was same for both these models, with the help of RMSE we were able to find out which model was really good, right? So that's where the RMSE is very much handy in terms of identifying the best fit model. Next we have something called mean absolute percentage error, right? So that one we will discuss it later. And apart from these metrics, right? See, this is a candidate exam, or this is the right example. So when should I use RMSE? When should I use adjusted R-squared? You remember in the case of okay, I don't want to give that example. See, with these two model, the adjusted R-squared were same, right? So it was same. Obviously you will think, right, so instead of removing the two features, why can't we include the insignificant features also in the model? But only when you use RMSE you will get to know, no, right, so if you include the insignificant features, those two insignificant features, the model can learn the noise. What is noise? Noise is error, right? So it can, because those two features are not at all significant. Which features? Price, PAR and MISC. These two features were not at all significant. PAR and MISC, these two features were not significant. Though these two features were not significant, adjusted R-squared was 0.89 something, we got it. Even here also 0.89. But with the help of RMSE, we were able to nail down, okay, which model was really good. Right? Okay, good. So apart from this, using RMSE, we need to check, we need to validate certain assumptions of the linear regression model. Okay, so only then your model will be complete. Your model development, a kind of testing, we do testing, right? The testing will be complete, right? So here we cannot say testing, we are validating the assumptions here. We need to validate the model assumptions, right? And also what we do is we have something called influential observation. Which observations, what do you mean by observation? The records. Which records are influential? We'll discuss about that later, okay? So now what we'll do is we'll take a look at what is regression assumption, okay? So what are the assumptions that we need to validate? It's something like, even though you validated of those two models using RMSE, right? Let's say the RMSE is the better model, but still you need to use some other kind of, test you need to do it to make sure that your model is really doing good, okay? So what I'll do is I'll execute this one once again. This one yesterday we saw, right? But don't worry about the command, syntax and all. Understand the big picture. I just put it. Yeah, the LM test function has the Durbin-Watson test related function in it, and also Bruce-Pagan test related functions is available as part of LM test package. Here in Python we use import command to import the package, whereas in R we use library function to import the package. Once you are done with this, you conduct the Bruce-Pagan test. This is for checking the homoscedasticity. Since the p-value is not less than alpha, we try to reject the null hypothesis and we conclude that there is a homoscedasticity. In other words, there is no heteroscedasticity. And then we conducted a test, the Durbin-Watson test, to ensure that the errors are independent. There is no correlation. See, if the p-value is less than 0.2, then the results are significantly correlated. In our case, the p-value is not less than 0.05, hence no evidence of autocorrelation with respect to the errors. Okay, good. Finally, we have something called multicollinearity. Check for multicollinearity. Okay, so VIF function, there is something called VIF function. So I am going to use this model intentionally. Look here, size, UDS, PAR, MISC. These are the features. We have a function called VIF. VIF stands for variable inflation factor. VIF stands for variable inflation factor. So what does this function do? This function is helpful to identify any correlation, the presence of any correlation amongst the or between the independent variable. Yesterday I told you which variables are supposed to be correlated with which variable. In linear regression, that is one of the important point that you need to remember it. Which variables are supposed to be correlated with which variable. Yesterday I showed you the core function, right? And also explained you. Karthik, are you there? why we have to use correlation function? Look here, I showed you that one also, right?
Dependent variable.
What variable?
Dependent variable, how it is.
Price and price, right, is dependent variable.
Size and price? Yeah, size and price, correct. Yeah, tell me. Yeah, size and price?
These are dependent variable and should not be correlated.
No. The independent variable size should be correlated with the dependent variable. Linearly it should be correlated. See here, size and price, this value you need to look at it. This value is for the combination of size and price. Saranaran, right? Size and price. Each independent variables are supposed to be correlated with your dependent variable. For that purpose we use cor function, correlation. Are there any correlation exists between each independent variable and the corresponding each dependent variable and the are there any correlation exists between the dependent variable and the and the independent variables? UDS, right? But this is higher the value is better the correlation. Any value which is closer to 1, Karthik, are you there? Any value which is closer to 1, that means these two variables are correlated well. This is somewhat closer to 1 and 0.56 is somewhat closer to 1, right? Somewhat 0.60 if you don't it, right? But if you look at these two values, it is 0.1, very weak relationship. There is no correlation, right? Very less correlation, but these two variables are correlated well, right? That is what we discussed. Okay, so the point here is those independent variables are correlated well with your dependent variable, include them in your model. These two variables are not correlated well. So here itself we could decide, we don't have to use stepwise regression in this case because the number of features are very less here, only 4 features are there. Right, here itself we can decide. Okay. But another rule is there should not be any correlation between the independent variables. These two variables are not supposed to get correlated and these two variables are not supposed to get to correlate and these two variables are not supposed to correlate. These two are not supposed to get correlated. Now I will go back to this chart. I executed the code from the top, right? It would have executed the correlation plot also. Now you tell me which all independent variables are correlated. So not this one, this is not much helpful. The corgram is not much helpful. This is the one, is core plot is very much helpful. Now look at this. Yeah, price and very good. Price and?
Size and price.
No, not that. You see, size and size also correlated. You are not supposed to look at the same variables correlated value, right?
No, I'm saying size and price.
No. My question was which independent variables are correlated, not independent and dependent. Independently a correlation irukkodadu. For example, MISC, right, and park. These two, if you look at it, park is an independent variable, MISC is also independent, but these two are correlated where it should not be. Whereas it should not be, right? These two independent variables, that is the rule.
Yes.
The independent, there should not be any correlation exist between or amongst the independent variables. Similarly, MISC is correlated well with park. And how about UDS and size? UDS and size, if you look at, there is no correlation, right? These two are good. There is no collinearity. This is called collinearity. See here, park and park is okay. Park and MISC, these two are independent variable, but there is a strong correlation exists between these two independent variable. That means we have collinearity. It is called multi-collinearity. There should not be any multi-collinearity, but we have multi-collinearity is there in this model. So for this, I just go down here. I just use simply the VIF function. See, if you have 100 features, it is difficult to find out, right? Looking at the chart and design, decide which features are correlated between them, right? So if here it gives you some values, any value which is more than 10, right? Any value which is more than 10, that means those features are correlated. So in this case, which two variables are having more than 10 here? Karthik, Park and MIC, right? These two variables values are more than 10. This is the rule of them. See, like in blood report they say, right? If the fasting blood sugar is more than 130, then you are a diabetic, something like this. These values are above 10. Hence, these two variables are collinear. We have a multicollinearity is there in our model. Then how do I fix the multicollinearity? So what you do is, of these two features, you drop one feature, right? I include only one feature. Of these two collinear feature, include only one. Knock out any one of these two, knock out any one of them. And then what you do is, you fit the model and then check the RMSE and then create another model. This time you drop this collinear variable, include this one only along with the other two variables and then check the RMSE. Of these two model, whichever model's RMSE is lesser, that is the best model. But in our case, these two features are first of all not at all significant. There is no point in including this feature at all, right? These two features are not at all significant. There is no point in including the feature. And then what is the point in checking the collinearity, right? But still, for the sake of understanding the theory, right, I demonstrated this one. These two, supposing these two features are significant, right? And significant, all the features, see, if these, let's say all these four features are significant, statistically significant. What do you mean by statistically significant? Look here, this is what, right? Star star, you see star stars. Simply one shortcut I told you. When you find a star star, where is the other one? Okay, I'll execute this one. Okay, I have overwritten this. For these two features, you can see stars along with them, right? That means these two variables are significant. You don't see any star, that means simply you think, right, these two variables are not at all helpful in terms of predicting the target variable housing price. Right? First of all, these two variables are not significant. Supposing these two, if you find a star here, right, that means all the four features are significant. That doesn't mean you can blindly include all the four features. Even though all the four features are significant, you cannot include blindly all the four features. Supposing these two are significant, right? All the four features are significant. Still you need to check the the presence of multicollinearity. Using which function? VIF function. Right? Using which? But here, if you see, okay, Park and MA is also significant feature, but these two are collinear. Then now how do I address the collinearity? As I told you, of these two collinear variable, drop any one of them and then retain only one. For example, MIC you drop it, okay, and you create a model with these three features. See, I am going to ask questions, please concentrate. And then the next step is, what am I going to do? See, I create one model with these three features, I note down the RMSE. What is the next step I am going to do? Sarnath, Prakash, Karthik, Sudeep. Nobody is concentrating. Guys, everybody has problem, okay? Please concentrate. You create a model, it's a model 1, include all, size plus UDS plus Park. Let's say the RMSE for this model is 12, okay? And the next, what I am going to do, I am creating another model. let's say if the RMSE is 11, RMSE is, let's say MISC, I'm going to say MISC here. So of these two, which one is better? Sorry, this is model 2, right? This is model 1, model 2. Of these two, which one is better?
Model 2 is better.
Why? Very simple, the answer is very simple.
Yeah, model 2 will be better because of less error.
Very good, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all. Model 1 error is 12. Model 2 error is 11.
Low.
The lesser the error, better the model.
Yes.
This is one way of addressing the what? Multicollinearity. Right? So multicollinearity. So in general, right, the multicollinearity can happen when you have redundant variables. What do you mean by redundant variables? Having the same feature one more time in your model, or somewhat similar, right? For example, date of birth and age. You have a column called date of birth and you have a column called age, right? So these two are redundant. You don't have to have these two columns, right? Better you can include only the age, date of birth. With that you can compute the age also, right? If you know the date of birth, you have a formula and you can compute the age also. Redundant variable, right? In that case, you remove the redundant variable, retain only the the only one variable instead of having duplicate variables, right? Redundant variables you can have like this: UDS plus par. These are kind of redundant variable. So of these two redundant, which one should I keep? Right. So that the next question is, you need to do this one only, trial and error. But if I have 100 features, how will I know? 100 features. Let's say you have another. Let's take another two variables. Those two variables are also more than 10, somewhat similar. Then how will you know whether there is a collinearity amongst between these two variables, or these two variables, or these two variables, or this one and that one? How will you know? Again, you'll have to look at this one, sure. The car plot. And again, how many combinations that you have to try it out, right? With the 4 collinear variable, how many combinations you have to do it? You need to fit so many models, right? It's a painful thing. Even with 4 collinear variable, you need to remove one variable and then fit the model, and remove another one, fit the model, and include only 2 finally, and then you check it, right? It's not feasible, right? You will get confused and it's a time consuming job. So there is in R and other languages, there is something called so what is that? One second, I'll just show you with this one. So we have another function that is available, using which you can address the multicollinearity. I will tell you that function little later. Okay. Okay. A lot of memory loss happened for me because of all these confusions. Right. So I used to this one, the ridge regression. Remember this. Ridge regression algorithm is to address the collinearity, multicollinearity. Apart from this, we have something called PCA. He is a super guy, okay? Principal component analysis, using which also we can address what? Multicollinearity. So now you understood what is collinearity, or collinearity is nothing but multicollinearity. What is multicollinearity? Correlation amongst the independent variable. Correlation should exist between independent and dependent. It should not be between the independent variable or amongst the independent variables. Okay, got it? So what is the way out? So this is a simple way out. If the number of features are very less, you can do it this way. But in reality, we don't get less number of features, right? So in that case, you leave it with ridge regression. It will take care automatically. I'll explain how it deals with the multiplanarity little later, or in the next week session. Okay. And apart from this, we have something called principal component. This one falls under unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Which one? PCA. Anyhow, I'll cover this one also during the course of explaining this algorithm. You will be able to understand how the multicollinearity is addressed. And again, each algorithm has its own, the advantages and disadvantages. We'll discuss that later. So hope all of you are able to understand the test, right? See here in total, checking for linearity, residuals, homoscedasticity, independent of errors, multicollinearity. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 test if you conduct, that is enough. See, apart from this, there are people, right? You have something called plot model name itself. We can give housing dot fit. If you give this one, or itself plots generate multiple plots. Look here, you have to press enter, it return to next plot. 1 second. If you encounter this error, right, figure margins too large, you need to increase the size of this one. The next one is, if you do this one, plot see residuals versus fitted, and normal QQ plot. I told, right, residuals are supposed to be normally distributed. And the next one is scale location, standardized residuals versus fitted values. Okay, and then you have something else. See, by default we have something called cook distance also, right? Using the cook distance, you can find out the influential observations. You can find out the leverage and influential values, right? Observation you can find out. We'll explain Cook's distance also in the next session, because I don't want to explain everything in a single session, right? So okay, the next one is fine. So now you understood. As of now you understood. If you are asked to fit a linear regression model, what you are supposed to do it, right? First you need to start with import the data, import the packages, import the necessary data, and then use the list function, explore, conduct the next step is, after importing the data, you need to explore the data. So this also falls under exploring the data only. How many number of records are there, how many number of columns are there, and what values are there in this data set, in this data frame, right? For that you use head function, top 6 records you see it, and we have something like tail function, last 6 records you see it, and summary function will give you an idea whether you have any outlier in your columns, given columns, or you have any missing values are there, that also you can find out. The next step is we plot the data, right? As part of exploratory data analysis, what we do is we plot the histogram for each and every numerical variable, right? Price, size, UDS and par. And some people they use box plot also, because box plots are helpful in terms of identifying the outlier. In case of any outlier, you have to fix it. That we will discuss it later. Next step, what we did, we used car plot. So why we used car plot? To check, are there any linear relationship or correlations exist between the independent and dependent variable. Which variables are not linearly correlated with the dependent variable. For that purpose we used. Apart from this, it is helpful to understand if there are any correlation exists amongst the independent variable or between the independent variable, right? That is violating our rule, linear regression rule. Fine. The next step, what we did, we create the train and test set. We have something called set seed, set.seed 100. So this is to produce this same result, produce the same result set. See, what will happen is, this is the syntax, okay. The next line is create data partition. So this is the function we use it. This function is available as part of your package called caret in OR. Okay, caret in OR. So this caret, the create data partition, what it does, this is the syntax. First argument supposed to be your target variable. The data frame dollar your target dependent variable name. Okay, and p is equal to 0.6. That means in what split should I do it, right? Right, 60% of the data randomly you sample it. List equal to false. The output of this one should not be list, need not to be list. Okay, list data type, right? List is a fundamental data structure. We don't want the output to be stored in the form of list. So what happens? This one will return it randomly samples 60% of the data from this housing data set, and then it return the row number. Row number is nothing but the index values. One second, I'll just show you what value is here. Index values, right? See, it sampled randomly 60% of the data, randomly, right? Third row, fifth row, sixth row, seventh row, ninth row, right? Third row, fifth row, sixth row, seventh row, ninth row, 10th, 13th row, right? 60% of the, one second, I think somebody is not on. Mute. Please mute, okay, if you are talking to someone, right? Please mute. Right, look here. So this one on the right side returns the index value, the randomly sampled 60% of data, right? For this 60% of data, it simply returns the corresponding index value only. This index value, if you pass it as an argument to this data frame, and if you specify comma, that means select this row, after comma, since you did not specify anything, the corresponding column values also. The third row and the corresponding columns, all the columns related to third row also included in this data frame, right? So that, see here, the idea here is returning only the row IDs. Let us not consume too much of memory, right? So after you get the 60% of the rows, randomly sampled rows, the index value, then you pass it as an argument to this data frame and then fetch the corresponding all the columns and then store it in the train data frame. And then if you subtract this one, if you exclude all these rows, if you exclude all these index values, we are left with the remaining 40% of the data that you store it in a test data frame. That's all. Let's see, if I don't use set seed, what will happen is, every time when I run my script, what will happen is, each time this function will randomly, let's say, I will run it once again. Let me do one thing. I will just run it once again. For each run, it will sample different records. See now 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, right? Earlier 3, 4, 6, 9. What will happen is, let's say you develop this model and you share it with your manager. He is sitting in the 4th floor, you are in the 3rd floor. He is running your script. But for him it will give the different RMSE values. Because he used different data set to train the model, and you use different, but if you use set.seed here, right, and if you share the code to him also, right, what will happen is, whatever the data set randomly sampled, the same data will be reproduced again, right? This is to reproduce the same result set. Okay, that's all. There is nothing, it's not a rocket science, okay, very simple one. Set seed is to reproduce the same result set, right? Even if you run it multiple times, it will not produce a different training and test data set, right? The training and test data set will be same, but it's a randomly sampled one. Fine. So with this train data frame, I train the model, and then I store this model in a meaningful name. Instead of housing.fit, you can specify model 1, right? You can use some meaningful name, model 1, housing.model. and second one is size.uds, second model I created. So I am going to compare the what? The RMSE. Of these two models, which model's RMSE is less, then that is the better model. And still, in addition to this RMSE, I am going to validate my train my model with these five tests, right? So checking for linearity, are there any linearity exists between the independent variable and the residuals, and normality of the residual, whether the residuals are normal or are there any heteroscedasticity? No, then it is complying with this assumption. Are there any independents or nothing? Fine. So that's all. Variable, are there any multicollinearity? Right. So now my model complies or others with these test, right, these assumptions, then it is good. So now we are good to go with this model, but still we cannot deploy this model in the production directly. Okay, we need to conduct some more test. So okay, next let us look at the Python way of implementing the model. Okay, all the steps, right, whatever I discussed, the same here also in Python also. Only thing is the command, syntax, packages, everything is different here. Okay, so NumPy, pandas, but in the case of Python, sklearn package is a very popular package. This is the one is used to implement machine learning models. Okay, so I imported the machine learning model. Here say sklearn.linear model. From this I imported the linear regression method, and then from sklearn import metrics. See, in the sklearn something called metrics, and the data set also I imported it. I stored the housing data, the same data set, into a variable called HDF. HDF is my data frame. So I could still star here after I press this button or run. I could see star. That means that is in progress. We have to wait. The next step is matplotlib. I imported the packages, right? Visualization related packages. The next step is I wanted to see the top 5 records data. Fine. And next one is I'm using parplot, right? So parplot, so it gives me the size and price, each independent variable with the corresponding target variable. I plotted the scatter plot, sorry, right? So here we could see a linear trend. Here also we could see a linear trend, but it is not linear, right? Somewhat it is closer to the straight line. It is not so linear. It is also linear, but not so linear, right? So but it is much worse than this one, right? There is the relationship between these two are not much. The par and MISC, these two variables relationship with the dependent will not so good, and this is decent line, right? Pretty good line. And also the values are scattered. This blue circle, right? It is scattered far away from this line. Here also it is scattered far away. Here it is somewhat clustered around this straight line. Here also it is fine, but still there are some values, but it is good compared to these two. This is far better. So with this we can understand UDS and size, these two independent variables are correlating with price. Rest of them are not doing it. It is equivalent to our car plot. Here also we can use car plot. Instead of using this par plot, we can use car plot also. But we have unknown options available in Python. With that we can specify the relationship value also. For example, size and price 0.8, stronger relationship, and the UDS and price 0.5 is good, but whereas Park and MIC the 0.2 only is there, weak relationship. Instead of using bar plot, you can use this one also. Okay, and the next one is I'm just checking are there any missing values or nothing is there. Fine. The next one is I'm going to remove the I'm going to skip this one, and the next step is, see, in Python we have something called train test split method that is available as part of this package. This is another class or library that is available as part of this. This is sub library. Okay, sub library, right? Sub module. So this is the main module. This is sub module. In this module there is a method called train test split. So on the left side of the train test split, you need to specify the X train X test. Okay, and this is for the independent variable training data set. This is my training data set. This is my test data set. Okay, on the right side, it is slightly different here. Okay, the way of creating the train and test data set in Python. Okay, train X comma Y. See, first you need to create the X and Y variable. The X, one second, where I did this. See, X, I created X, right? So in this one I included all the features blindly. I include all the features. So HDF of features, I just pass this an argument. So this data frame will have all the 4 columns, all the 4 features, and this data frame will have only the price, the dependent variable. The X is nothing but independent variables, Y is the variable Y hold the dependent variable value. That's all. We see, in this case we create X and Y variable. X is, the variable X will hold all the independent variables. The variable Y will hold the dependent variable value. That's all. The next step is, where is that one? The next step is, see, random state equal to 10. The random state is nothing but set seed in R, set dot seed, right? To reproduce the same result set, we use random state equal to 10. Okay, on the left side of this one, you need to specify 4 variables. Okay, so this is how you need to use, define the variables. The training data set and test data set. For training data set also you need to specify 2 different variables. One is to hold the independent variable, other one is to hold the dependent variable. The test data set also, for the test data set also you need to create 2 variables. One is to hold the independent variables, other one is to hold the dependent variable. That's all. Right? So that's all. The next step is, see here, I created an instance of linear regression. Linear regression I imported here, right? I just created an instance of linear regression. Now my init.fit. So you need to use something else called fit function, fit method. This is the method, right? This is the built-in method. So I created an instance name. This is nothing but linear regression, right? Linear regression, because multiple algorithms are there. How will the Python kernel will understand which algorithm we are using it to fit them all, right? So for that we need to create an instance linear regression and store that to a variable called init.fit. You can specify whatever name you want it. Okay, so this instance name dot fit pass the X train Y train. See here what I did, the independent variables of the training data set, the dependent variable of my training data set, nothing but the training data set. That's all. See, you remember in R I used tilde. On the left side of the tilde I used dependent variable, on the right side of the tilde I used the independent variable. It is slightly opposite. Here the left side unit is, first argument is your independent variables, the next one only your dependent variable. It is quite opposite. The next, right after I fitted the model, next step is print model.coef. It gives me the coefficient values for the intercept, slope for the remaining 3 variables. So sorry, the slope values for the 4 independent variables. If you want to see the intercept, model.intercept, these are reserved word. Okay, coef underscore print intercept underscore. So you got the intercept value, you got this one, and what you do is you fitted the model, right? Your model name is model, and you need to apply this model on the test data set. So your model name is model dot predict. Here you need to use like this. This is the syntax. Okay, you cannot use predict directly. In R, what was the syntax? Predict, inside the predict function you need to specify the model name comma the unseen data. But whereas in the case of Python, need to specify the model name dot predict. Model should be prefixed with the model name dot. See, in our case the model name is the linear regression model, right? Model dot predict. So apply this trained model on the unseen data X test. So this value we are storing in the pred, and these are the predicted values. That's all. Slightly different. but it is same only. You watch my video once again, okay, and so that you will get clarity. Also in my website I will share the link. In my website itself, right, for Python I put separate video and or I put separate video to fit the model. I will share that link right after this session, right? You can watch that one also, because it's a long video, right? You will not have patience to watch it. Next step is, now I fitted the model and then I made a prediction. Now I need to evaluate my model. So here what we do is np, right? So this is the NumPy package. np.square root is available. There is a function called square root that is available as part of the NumPy package, and the matrix is available as this one. This method is available as part of your sklearn package. Matrix dot mean squared error. This is also function. Okay, this function is as available as part of your matrix, and y underscore test and pred actual and predicted value. Pass the actual and predicted value to the mean squared. It will give you the mean squared error. Right? Since we have taken the square root on the mean squared error, this is called RMSE value, root mean squared error. Or if you want to look at the mean absolute error, see here there is a function called mean underscore absolute error. It's a built-in function, mean absolute. And then R squared, if you want to see the R squared, right? So you need to use, the one disadvantage of the sklearn, right? It is not going to, when it comes to linear regression, it is not much helpful. It is not giving the entire detail like how the R gives. In the case of R, I use summary, right? So it gives the detailed information about your model. It is not giving that way. So if you want to see the slope value, I have to use square thing, and then intercept I have to use separately. Intercept, but if you want to see the holistic picture, it is not coming here, right? It is not available here. That is one drawback. But we know the formula for adjusted R square. 1 minus 1 minus R square into length of the train value minus 1 divided by this one. So this one will give you the adjusted R square. R squared, see R squared, I already computed it. Init fit dot score. The score function gives you the R squared value. See how painful here, right? But if you see here, this one line command gives the R squared, adjusted R squared, F star, everything it gives. But here it is bit difficult, right? So you need to use score function, all the things. Okay, it's painful. But there is something called OLS functions available in Python. That one gives much more. Look here. Here's something called OLS. This OLS is available as part of stats model package. Okay, but this gives you much more detailed information about your model. So what is the dependent variable in the price, housing price, right? And then R squared value, adjusted R squared, F statistic, everything it gives. In addition to it gives all these statistics. Durbin, Watson, Jarki, Barrow, all the intercept, look here, somewhat similar to R summary function. But in practice, most of them they use sklearn package only, right? So they don't use this one. Which one? The stats model. See, this is the one, right? The stats models. There is a package stats model.formula.api as SMF. You need to import this one. Once you import this, smf.ols. Formula is same as your. See, left side here also tilde is there. Left side will depend on right side your this thing. Okay, and dot fit you have to specify at the end of this one. This one gives you much more detailed information. Okay. Much more detailed information. So here R squared value we can see here, right? And then we could see the adjusted R squared, everything we can see it here, right? Adjusted R squared 0.893. So this is also good, somewhat closer to 1. So we can see something called omnibus 53, right? So it is a test of the skewness and kurtosis of the residual. So the errors, right? Whether the errors are normally distributed or not, something, right? And what is Q? it is a measure of data symmetry, right? We want to see something close to 0. So the skew is supposed to be somewhat closer to 0. That means the residual distribution is normal, and also we have something called kurtosis. Kurtosis, it is a measure of peakedness or a curvature of the data. That is what it tells us. And we have Durbin-Watson test. Look here, Durbin-Watson also it shows, right? It is a test for homoscedasticity. And we have something called Jarki-Bera. We did not see it in R, but this is specific to Python. It is same as the omnibus test. In that it tests both the skewness and kurtosis. See, what is this omnibus test? It is a skewness. It is a test of the skewness and kurtosis of the residual. Skewness and kurtosis of the residual. That is what omnibus test, right? The probability of the omnibus is 0.00. That's what we can see here. And something else called condition number. This is the one tells us, or it measures the sensitivity of the function output as compared to its input. That is what the condition number says. But you don't have to look at all these things. All you need to look at is the adjusted R squared and R squared with this, okay? And then the slope value and the intercept values, you can see it here, right? And with that you can find out how best your model fitted with the adjusted R squared. The next one is RMSE, right? RMSE you can use it. Supposing you think the sklearn is not giving the detailed information about the model, you can use YLS also in conjunction with this one, right? So model evaluation in sklearn score, this is the one gives you the R square. R square is now, once you know the R square, you can subtract the R square plus 1, and again you need to you need to use this formula to get the adjusted R square. So this is the R square value, this is the adjusted R square. Adjusted R square value is lesser than your R square. And the next step is I want to check the R2 score, right, for the training and test data set. For the training data set, see, in this way the sklearn is very good, okay? In this way the sklearn package is very much helpful. See, now what is the training data set R squared value, what is the test data set R squared value, right? Model performance well on training, right? So with now you tell me, are these two values are same? It is not same, or are these closer, or these two values are too far? It is somewhat closer, right? You round it off, the 0.8 is somewhat 0.90. The second one is going to be 0.89. There is subtle difference. That means when I check the R squared value for the training data set, it is 0.90. When I test the R squared value for the test data set, 0.89. What do we conclude now? I discussed this in the previous session. Both the training and tested adjusted R squared or RMSE values are same, then there is no overfitting. That means my model works well on training data set as well as on the test data set. This is very important concept, overfitting, underfitting. See, we train the model, right? Let's say my model name is model. We train the model using the training data set, right? We train now with the training data set, how well my model is doing well. For that, let's say you use RMSE. Your RMSE is 1.9, right? And then you apply the model on the test data set. After you apply the model on the test set, what is the RMS? You need to do right. So this one also here in R I did not show this, but let's know the RMSE value is somewhat 1.823 something like that. So the RMSE for the training data set or the adjusted R square for the training data set is or let's say RMSE, okay, RMSE for the training data set is 1.9. When I train my model, right, or how well my model performing on the training data set. Okay, 1.9. So how well my model performing on the test data set? 1.823. That means these two values are overlapping. Instead of using RMSE, you can use the R2 I used, right? Let's say the adjusted R squared is let's say 0.8923 for the training data set. This is very important, please concentrate. For the test data set, the R squared, alright, R squared is 0.8823. That means my trained model performance is 0.89. When I apply the same model in the test data set, also somewhat overlapping. That means there is no overfitting. So what is overfitting? My model is performing well on the training data set, but when I apply the model on the unseen data, my model is not performing well. Supposing my RMSE value, right? If the RMSE value is, let's say 2.8, the error is very high. With the training data set, the error is less, but when I apply the model in the test data set, it should be somewhat closer to this one. Need not to be exact value of my training data set RMSE. It should be somewhat overlapping or somewhat closer. But it is way beyond this one. What do we understand from this? With this, I can understand there is a overfitting. This is what called as overfitting. My model is performing well on the training data set, whereas it is not performing well on the test data set. See, if you can also talk along with me, right? You can recollect, you will not forget it, you will not feel sleepy. That means if you don't have any overfitting, right? If your model is performing consistently well on both the training and test data set, that means your model has generalized very well. I always use this analogy, exam analogy. Let's say in your house, right, your father is conducting the test. Whenever your father conducts the test, you are scoring well. But when you appear for the exam, right, your performance is bad. Your mark is less. That means your father gives the questions, whatever the questions right, for that questions alone he has given you. Since you are familiar with these questions, you are able to score well. But in the exam, you cannot expect the questions which are familiar with it, right? They can give the questions anywhere. How your father should have given you the questions? See, take the simple example here. Don't tell. Please open up. Karthik, are you there? You should talk fat here, Karthik.
Yes, sir.
Your father should have given all combination of questions, not like the questions which are familiar with it, right? Had you given you all combination of questions, then even in the exam you will fare well, right? The same analogy applied here. If your model is performing well on the training data set, and if it is not performing well on that, there is a overfitting. That means overfit. But if your model is performing well on both the training set as well as the test set, then there is no overfit. Your model has generalized very well. The whole objective of deploying the model, before you deploy the model in the production, you need to make sure that how well the model generalizes. How well my model generalizes. Only when my model generalizes, then only my model is fit to get deployed in the production environment. Right? So you develop your model and then apply the model on the different data set and check with the different data set how well my model is performing. How well my model is performing. I think most of you are tired, you're not responding well. Okay, see, next session onwards, you need to respond fat with me, okay? So that you don't have to watch video, waste of time watching 2 hours. You think you can watch 2 hours patiently?
set, right? The differentiation which we are giving is based on the same data wherever we are collecting, we are differentiating with the some other indicators. Like for example, you gave like P equal to 0.6 for a factor to get the details. So initialization of test, if you go up, right? So here, for example, see line number 97.
Okay.
Creating our test data set, right?
Oh, yes.
This is a test data set. So what is its difference between the train data set and test data set? How, because I could see the negative indicator here. So how it is?
See, that's when you were talking, that's where you were talking there, right? I told you to go on mute. See, now you understood, right? Even if you get distracted, the whole picture you lost.
Yeah.
See, that's what I request, try to write constantly during the session, right? So, okay, I'll just explain you once again. Look here. So, I take the entire data frame, okay? So, the create data partition is a function that this is available as part of your Caret package, right? So, you need to randomly sample this data set with 60% data you want to randomly sample it.
Yes.
Randomly sample. புரிஞ்சுதா? Randomly என்ன அர்த்தம்னா see the beauty of create data partition is the first argument you need to specify the dependent variable, right?
Yes.
So this entire function will return the randomly sampled the data sets index value only.
Okay.
Let's say you have 5 billion records, right? Why you need to select the randomly sample the entire 60% of the 5 billion data set,
Yes.
right? Listen. No, so no interruption. Okay. So 60% of the, instead of selecting all the columns, select only the row ID for the randomly sampled 60% of data. Is this clear?
Yes.
1 second, I'll execute this one.
So when you say set same, it will create the same index again and again.
Forget about that now. Okay, let's not discuss so many. See, randomly in artham, not sequentially, right? Third record, fifth record, sixth record, seventh record, like the 60% of the data it's selected. But it's selected with the row ID only. Smartly you selected only the row ID. This row ID, if I pass it once again as an argument to my data frame, what will happen? Here I mentioned comma here. So third row, comma, the rest of the columns also is selected. Only in this step, I am selecting the entire records data here, in addition to the row value, right? You understood or not?
Yes.
So
Yes.
indicator means a row value and comma after comma you take all the columns. All the index that.
Excellent Satish.
Taken, right?
Yes. So we are smartly selecting all the column values only in this step, right? So we are passing only 60% of the data randomly sampled to training data frame. So if I put minus in, what will happen? Except these rows, except these index value, what are the remaining 40% of the row index values? Those are all nothing but, see, if you exclude these these index values, the remaining 40% will go here.
Yeah, remaining 40 will go.
Yeah.
Got it.
Got it? Yeah, fine.
Got it.
So that's all, right? So this is what we use. So now the training data set is different, test data set is different,
Yeah, got it.
completely different. My model did not even see this test data set value, right? Now if I apply the train model on the unseen data also, it should perform well, because once you deploy the model in the production environment, your model will get applied on the new incoming data. The production, every month new data will come, right? Those are all the unseen data to my model, because I train the model with the historical data, past data. The model should pick up the new incoming data, every month new data, and then it should predict. But when my model applies on the new incoming data, monthly data, the prediction accuracy should not be less or more, right? The prediction accuracy should be good. It should be consistent. Even if you give any new data to my model, the accuracy should be good. There should not be any change in the accuracy. So for that we have something else called So why we need to apply the model on the test data set? First of all,
To predict RMSE for both.
no, to predict the estimated housing price for the test data set, and also with the right, and also we can find out the RMSE, right, root mean square error, right? Fine. My question is, first of all, why I have to apply the model on the test data set?
To check whether whatever train is and test is are having a similar kind of prediction.
Exactly, right? So, right, so yeah, so here, see, I'll tell you one thing, I'll do this one also so that you should not get confused. Okay, it is not that we have to apply only on the test data set, you can apply it on the training data set also, right? Training data set. So here it should be train. This is for the test data set, right? Test data set, fine. So in addition to my training data set columns, I'm going to have I'll be having a new column called pred. This is the one will be having the predicted value for the training data set. Am I correct?
Yes.
Next, similarly test data set. Test data set I don't repeat. So that's what we did it for the test data set also, right? So once you store this in your training data set, the predicted value for the training data set also, if you store it in the training data frame, the actual and predicted you can find out the difference between actual and predicted, and then you can find out the sum of square error and you can find out the root mean square error, right? RMSE for this, and you can find out the RMSE for the test data set also. You can compare these two also, right? But with the okay, this is called, so but we applied this model on the test data, unseen data. Applying the training model on the unseen data set is called your cross validation. This step is called cross validation.
To confirm whatever we have done on train is exactly applicable on the test or not.
Yeah, it's kind of see, once you develop a script, you have to do test, right?
Yeah.
Unit testing, kind of unit testing, right? So kind of that. So this one, okay. So you develop your model, you apply them on the unseen data. How well my model, but how well it performs on the training data set. You should have some kind of score, right? Some metric, right? For that you store it. This one also here, right? See, in R you don't have to use predict function. You have something called, let's say, if you use housing dot fit, you have something called fitted values. This variable will hold the outcome of this one, right? Will get it is by default available in this one. It's a built-in one. Predicted values, see, these are the predicted values. Predicted values for the training data set. Okay, you can directly assign this to train $pred instead of doing this step, right? You can directly assign this to this one. Okay, I don't want to tell so many things, you will get confused. That's why I did not tell you. Okay, or simply you think this way. Okay, so to apply the train model on the unseen data, that step is called your cross validation. Similarly, so now what happens? Let's go back to this scenario. So now Sarnath, right? Sarnath, he trained the model and then he applied the model on the test set, and he says both my training and test RMSE values are overlapping. It is good. My model generalized well. He is so happy, he is so proud about it. Now Bala is challenging with Sarnath. Hey, I will give you my test data set. You tell me now what is the RMSE value for both training and test data set. Now he tells the test data set RMSE is way beyond the training data set RMSE value. This is called overfitting. So I am a manager, so I could see that you both are arguing, and with Sarnath Sarnath, he applied his model on the test data set and both of them are overlapping, fine. But when Bala gave the other test data set, when Sarnath applied his model on Bala's test set, we could see overfitting. Now what happens? Karthik, he gives another test data set. Karthik gives another test data set to Sarnath. With that test data set, it is overlapping. Now what he do? With the two different test data set, the model is performing well, but with only one test data set given by Bala, it is not performing well. Still, we call this as overfitting. You give any data, it should not overfit. Because in the production environment, we do not know every month what data comes in, because new data comes, right? Instead of applying the model on the test data set, once you deploy the model, right, the real-time data, every month data, monthly data, maybe you will be picking it as the test data set. Second month you will take the second month data and then you predict it. The error should not be much. Each month, when you, for the new data, when you do forecasting, right, the error should not be way too high. It should be less. It should be consistent. So how do we deal with this situation? With the two test data set, it is we don't see any overfit, but other test data set there is a overfit. For this, right, what we do is we use something called tenfold cross validation, k-fold cross validation. K-fold cross validation. Okay, so what I will do is, this one I will discuss it in the next session, because Karthik needs some time to understand all the things. Okay, we have a built-in function model val score, where model all these things, mean square 50, cross validation is 10, so it will create 10 folds. See, k fold, right? The k is, we can specify the value. It's a what do you say? It is called hyperparameter. It is called hyperparameter. K is hyperparameter. You can specify whatever value you want. You can specify. But traditionally we use tenfold cross validation. We take the given data set. With the given data set itself, we will split that into 10 different folds. 10 different folds. Yeah, another 5 minutes is there, right? I will explain it now, because it's a very simple one. Because I will make it simple to you all. See, let's say I have 1000 records given. My customer gave me 1000 records of data, right? So what I did, 60-40, 600 records. Are you there? 600 records for training data set. And remaining 400 records for test data set, right? 60-40, but it's all right. This is randomly sampled, okay? Fine. Training and test data set. But if I have only one test data set is there, and I requested my business stakeholder, hey, give me some other test data set, I need to apply the model, and I want to check if my model is consistently performing well on the other unseen data set also. He says, I don't have any test data set, but you need to use whatever data I give. With that you test and tell it. So what we do is, or for simply because of the space problem here, right, we use 5-fold cross validation. We take this 1000 records, 1000 divided by 5, how much?
200.
200, right? Yeah. 1000 divided by 5 is 200. What I will do is I will create 5 folds. Sorry, see, fold 1. It's a straight line, okay? 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 folds I created. I take the existing data set and divide by 5. 5-fold cross validation. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and one more thing. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I create 5 folds. And each fold will have 200 records, right?
Kind of splitting the existing record.
Exactly. Splitting the given data into 5 different parts, equal parts, kind of equal parts. Karthik, please concentrate, okay? And write 100 records. If I each fold, right, 5 folds, right? 500 divided by 200 divided by 5, how much? 40 divided by 5. 40, right? 200. So 40, 40, 40, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one will have 40 records, 40 records, 40 records, 40 records, 40 records. Similarly, I do it for all the other folds also, right? Fine. So with the given data itself, what I do is, I will use this as a test data set. The rest of them are my training data set. These are all my training data set. This one is my test data set. Which one? This one. In this second fold, I use this as a test data set. Okay. Rest of them are training data set. Right? If I put like this, right? This is test data set. So this is a test data set for this fold. For this fold, this is the test data set. For this fold, this is the test data set. For this fold, this is the test data set. For this fold, this is the test data set. The rest of them are training data set. Right? So what I do is I take the same model, housing dot, let's say fit 1 or fit, right? I run this model on this, I train this model using this training data set and then apply this trained model on this data set, test data set. And similarly the same model, housing dot fit. So 5 iterations. We are running this model in 5 iterations. For each iteration, the training and test data set are different, right? Training and test data set differs or not?
Yes, difference.
Yes. For this fold, this is the training data set. This is the test data set. For this, but how we do it, that forget it. First understand the big picture.
Okay.
This is the test set. This is the test set, test set, test set. The rest of them are your training data. This is training data set. This is the training. Sarnath, are you with me? This is the training data set, right? So in this case, I'll be running this model in 5 different iterations, but for each iteration, the training and test data set are different. Now for this training and test data set, what is the RMSE? You don't have to compute the RMSE for train and test separately. When you apply the model in test data set, what is the RMSE? Let's say the RMSE is 1.2. For this, also you can compute the RMSE, right? It's a 1.8. For this, you can compute the RMSE. The RMSE is 1.0. And for this, you compute the RMSE. See, for each model, you can compute the RMSE, right?
This RMS
Because-
is training data, right?
No, yeah, test data set.
Okay.
Forget about that one. See, I told you, right? You need to find out the RMSE for both the training and test data set. That you forget it now. So now you need to find out the RMSE for the test data set only.
Okay.
Okay, got it? Yeah, good that you asked this question so that others should not get confused. Right? So this is for 1.2, 1.1, 1.0. For this, the RMSE is less than 1.3, and for this, the RMSE is 1.6. For different folds, for the different training and test data set, when I apply the same model, what do you mean by same model? The independent variables are same, right? For all the models. The dependent variables are same, but only the train and test data sets are different. So if you look at this one, the RMSEs are different. Obviously there will be difference. But how do I decide my model with this? How do I decide how well my model is doing it? You take the average of all these values. Right? Take the average of all these values. Somewhat it will come close to 1.x, right? 1.2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.9.
3.5 or 1.4, it will come around.
How much you get? 5, right? How much is 1 point? Right.
6.9 divided by 5.
Roughly 5, 1.3. Let's say 1.3 or something, right? 1.3. This is the RMSE. This is the average, the mean RMSE value. You need to take the average of these, all these folds RMSE value, 1.3, and take the standard deviation, SD. If you take the standard deviation, let's say the standard deviation is 0.8. Okay? 0.8. And so what does it say? there is not much variation. There is not much variation. See, I actually, this one supposed to housing.fit 1 here, housing.fit 1, not housing.fit, housing, because this has optimal features, right? Size and UDS only. If I apply this model on these 5 different training and test data set, the mean is this one and the standard deviation is 0.8. The variation is not much. But when I apply the housing.fit model, or when I use the housing.fit and if I split the data and if I run it against all these things, right, if your standard deviation is definitely, it will be very high for the different training test data set, 1.8. That means this model is not fit enough to get deployed in the model. So let's go back to the previous scenario. I was talking about Sarnath and the test data set given by Bala and Karthik, right? So now that confusion has gone. Usually what we do is conventionally use 10-fold cross validation. You split the given data set in 10 different folds, 10 different training and test data set. With that you run the model, and then so now you understood, right? If you have let's 1 million records test data set, especially when you work with Walmart, right? Every 1 hour or Target, 1 hour transaction 1 million. The volume of the data is very high. And if you create 10 folds, right, it will take a lot of time, right? The more the folds you use it, the computation time will be very high. Okay, forget about the computation now. In traditionally we use 10-fold cross validation. Instead of 5-fold, we create 10 different folds. So that means 10 iterations of your model will happen, right? Your model will run in 10 iterations. For each iteration, the training and test data set is different, and the RMSE will also be different. You take the average of this one, take the standard deviation. With this, you can decide, okay, if I use house.fit, my standard deviation will be very high. That means the deviation is one test set to another test set, the difference is very high. If I give different new data, the model is not generalizing well, the variation is too high. Okay, so we will discuss about bias and variance concept in the next session. I am going to cover the same thing also once again, right? So what is bias, what is variance, right? Ideally your variance should be less, and even if your bias is little bit more, let it be there. Bias is nothing but error and variance is nothing but the standard deviation, right? Even if you apply your model in any fold, there should not be too much of variation. So 1.28, 1.8, it's kind of closer. That is called your variance. Your variance should be less. Bias variance is less. See, now I'll explain you. Less variance. But the error is, instead of 1.3 I am getting right 1.8, let it be there. Right? So the whole objective is low bias. Bias is kind of error. Low bias, low variance. This is the objective. Right? But the error should be less and the consistent should also be very high. Right? But in real terms, you cannot get it like this. So even if your bias is moderate and if your variance is less, then you are good to go and deploy your model. But before we deploy, still we will try with different algorithms and we will see which algorithm is performing well. Now itself I will cover the bias and variance so that I don't have to repeat it again. Anyhow, I will give you a recap in the next session about this one also. So how do we see? We don't have to manually split, create 10 folds and all. There is a built-in function readily available, cross val score, as part of sklearn. So you need to specify your modeling and the independent variable and dependent variable training data set, and then mean squared error. For instead of using the RMSE, there is a score called mean squared error for each and every fold. So here I mentioned 10 fold. Look here. So here I used 5 fold, right? So behind the scene it splits like this. Very good, right? We don't have to manually do like this. C equal to cross validation 10, that means fold. How many folds that you need to use it? 10 folds. You need to perform cross validation with 10 folds, and then the output of this one I get student scores. See, look here, mean of the scores is the mean value, and standard deviation also we are getting it, right? So this is how you need to perform 10-fold cross validation. If somebody says cross validation, that means you are applying the model on the test data set, that's all. 10-fold cross validation is to overcome the bias. Like I said, the test data set created by Sarnath and the model trained by Sarnath, and we think, okay, you must be biased because he is the one trained the model, and he used the test data set in such a way both the RMSE for the training and test data set will be same, right? For that we use another test data set. Two test data set, it is overlapping, whereas the Bala he gave another test data set, right? With that it is overfitting. Better you take 10 different folds, nothing but 10 different test data set and 10 different training data set. With that you decide. It's good, right? That's what we are doing it. As part of the cross validation, we have different concepts like leave one out and 10-fold cross validation. Leave one out, it is not that, practically it is not possible. You are comparing your given data set, you take one data set as a test data set, rest of the data set training data set. In that case, you take each and every record as a training and test data set, but that is a highly time consuming process, but this is the practical way of using it, k-fold cross validation. So when will you use k-fold correlation? Supposing you don't have the test data set, sufficient test data set, you can use it. If your given data set very less, that case also you can perform k-fold cross validation. But in general, before you deploy the model, you can perform cross validation and then you take the call. Consistency. Even if I use different test data set, my error is not deviating too much. Good. And also the error is less. Okay, deviation is not there, but 222, 223. In that case, you need to use different models. Or you do further feature engineering. Something, you do feature engineering or feature selection. Probably you try to include new feature, or you try to exclude a few features from your model, right? So in that case, see how my model performs, like housing.fit 1, housing.fit 2. Likewise, you try with 3 different models and see it how which model is really consistently performing well across all the folds. Fine. Any questions? Okay, what I would suggest, right, you can watch my video, and we are keep updating our blogs also. I will share the blogs also in a day or two, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, the k-fold, everything. You can go through on my blog also, right, to enhance your knowledge about whatever I trained you. You watch that one also. And from next blogs which I'll be sharing it relevant to these topics from tomorrow onwards, so that you keep revise whatever I train you. By the end of this month, probably like Prakash said, right, by September first week or second week, you should be able to get into a new job at any cost. Alright, fine. So, okay, good night, take care, we will circle back next weekend. Okay, bye.
Sure, good night.